Acupuncture really stimulates the body so that it can heal itself. It is a very complex medical system, and it's effective, and it's been around, some say 2,000-3,000 years, but we can actually date it back to the Iceman that they found that had the arrowhead in the back of his back, and he's 5,000 years old. There was a Japanese researcher there that knew about acupuncture, and he said, I believe those are acupuncture points. So they brought an acupuncturist in and said, if you were doing acupuncture and using these points, what might you be treating? And the acupuncturist looked at them and said, it looks like there may have been some digestive issues and perhaps some joint pain or arthritis. And when they did the MRI on the Iceman, they found that yes, he had arthritis and he had parasite in his digestive system that was causing him digestive pain. So if you're trying various things for your body that aren't working, consider looking into acupuncture and find a licensed acupuncturist. Do your homework, look around, search the internet, make some calls, send some emails, see what you can learn about acupuncture before you go in, and give them a try.
Hi everyone, I'm Golda Hukic-Markosian, and I'm a managing editor of Faces of Utah magazine that you probably saw. In Faces of Utah, we profile experts in different fields, and today I have Kris Justesen, my friend of over 10 years, 12 years, right?
Something like that.
And Kris is the face of acupuncture. You have doctor in front of your name. What kind of doctor are you?
There are several types of doctorates in my field. Back at the time that I got mine, it was actually Oriental Medical Doctor. So the letters behind my name would be OMD. Today they are doing doctors of acupuncture, doctors of Chinese medicine. Those are two of the more common ones that we're seeing, DACM or DOM.
Yeah, I have a personal experience with you. I had these terrible migraine headaches, and I went to many different acupuncturists. It seems to me like every single day spa offers acupuncture nowadays, but you were different. So you really had a deep knowledge of anatomy, and you were the only one who actually made any difference. So, and I find your story very fascinating, how you got into that field of acupuncture, because you had completely different goals.
Yes, that's true. I did. Yes, I had injured my low back, ruptured a disc actually, when I was maybe 21, and didn't have insurance. So I went to a chiropractor, and he wasn't really able to help me too much, but he did help alleviate the pain somewhat. And ultimately I thought, well, gosh, maybe that's what I should do for a living, because I had a bachelor's and had taught school and coached, and decided that I wanted something more than that. And so I did some research, found a college in San Leandro, California, and decided that's where I wanted to go. It was Palmer West. And so I thought, well, I'll move to California and live there for a year, get to know the area, get settled in, and then I will apply for chiropractic college. And so that's what I did. But when I got there, I had doubts about cracking bones or being a chiropractor for the rest of my life. So I just kind of hung out. I guess I was a softball junkie. I played softball 7 days a week, played on 3 teams, coached another team. And at one point, there was a gal on the team that I coached that was going through a similar situation where she was considering chiropractic, physical therapy, some kind of physical medicine. And one day she showed up with a piece of paper, information on it, said, I just met with the dean of this acupuncture college. It looks like they've got a great program. Check it out. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. And I don't know what I did with the paper, but she asked me every week. And finally, I don't know, maybe a month later, she shows up with the piece of paper again and says, seriously, you got to check these guys out. So I thought, what the heck? I gave them a call, met with the dean, and it looked like they did have a very good program. Most of their instructors were medical doctors from China, orthopedic surgeon, heart surgeons, gynecologists, whatever. And since I had a bachelor's from Utah State and had my pre-med out of the way, I thought, well, why not? So they said, we'll rush an application if you get your transcripts and things to us. Classes start in 2 weeks. So I busted butt, got it, signed up for a couple classes, and as I was sitting in there, I thought it was really, I didn't know why I was sitting there really, as I thought, this is stupid. They're talking about different acupuncture points. You know, put a needle here and it will cause an effect someplace else in the body. And so I thought, well, I don't want to fail, so I'll finish this semester and then I'll just drop out and go do something else. And somewhere in there, I was working with the mayor's, San Francisco Mayor's Office of Community Development. And I injured my shoulder, I think it was my shoulder, moving blocks of concrete by myself, and found out they were 80 pounds each, but I thought I was strong, so I was moving it with one hand. And by the end of the day, I couldn't move my arm. And so I went to a chiropractor who pulled me off work immediately since I'd done it at work, and Western doctors gave me prescriptions for pain pills and muscle relaxers. The chiropractor said, no, come in here daily. So I went into her daily for 4 days, 5 days, and it wasn't doing any good. And I figured I'd better make my way to, one of the classes so that I didn't get too far behind. And I walked in, had tucked my thumb in my belt because it hurt to have my arm hang. And as I put my books down, one of my classmates looked at me and looked up, and he said, what's the matter with your hand? And I explained to him what had happened, and he said, well, aren't your treatments working? At that point, I was pretty much dumbfounded because I hadn't even considered acupuncture, and here I was in the school. So he told me about a doctor who was an orthopedic surgeon that was on the student clinic the next day. Said, go see him. I did. And in one treatment, I got 30% of my range of motion back. And I was shocked. And he said, come back again tomorrow. Gave me another very strong treatment. I got my range of motion back. I still had pain, but I could move my arm, which meant I could go back to work. I could resume activities. And so at that point, I thought, gosh, maybe there is something to this. I should pay attention.
So you were a skeptic.
I was a total skeptic, yeah. Yes.
And so what is the science behind it? How do you put a needle in one spot and then, use field effect in completely different part of your body?
Right. And, that's something that I don't, maybe Western medicine, not medicine, Western science will probably figure that out at some point. I think that they have located energy convergences on the body and been able to photograph it maybe with Kirlian photography or some other means. But we're not totally sure exactly how it started. One of my teachers told a story of, maybe there was a traveler who was walking along a path, and there were children playing, and they were throwing rocks and sticks at each other, and he incidentally was also struck with one of the rocks, and he had been having stomach pain, and after being hit with that rock, the stomach pain went away. And so he thought, so he remembered that point and figured that if he stimulated it or made it hurt when he had stomach pain, it would help him. And maybe other situations like that happened, and so somebody started keeping track of when an area of the body is stimulated, what happens elsewhere. And so the Chinese, through studying it, were able to identify meridians or pathways where energy ran through, much like our circulatory system or nervous system, but it's independent but interdependent on these other systems, so they all work together.
And so what can you use acupuncture for to heal what kind of diseases?
Acupuncture really stimulates the body so that it can heal itself. Mm-hmm. That's the way I look at it. It's more that we as acupuncturists, licensed acupuncturists, are coaches in a way. So we stimulate the body in certain areas that we've learned that will have effects on another part of the body, and come up with an acupuncture formulation that we do on a patient, and it will stimulate the body to focus on those areas and ultimately assist in healing them.
And so now, like as I mentioned before, like every little spa has a Botox injectors, and it has acupuncture person. And so how can we find out who is actually legit and who is just pretending to know what they're doing?
Right. That's a good question. Really, you want to find someone who is a licensed acupuncturist in the state of Utah. DOPL, which is the Department of Occupational and Professional Licensing, regulates acupuncture. They regulate chiropractic and physical therapy, Western doctors, pretty much everyone. And so if you are qualified, you can apply for a license in Utah, and as long as you meet the criteria, they will issue you a license. And then you have to maintain that license and renew it every couple years.
So you have to go to some sort of school or training.
Yes.
In how long is that training?
The training, if you have your it's probably a little bit different with different states. I went to California. My school required a bachelor's, and then it was 4 years on top of that.
So it is like a Ph.D. basically.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But what they ultimately give you is a master's, and then if you want a doctorate, you continue on a couple more years. So an individual that does acupuncture will have probably at least 6 years of formal education under their belt, and a doctorate may have 10 years under their belt or more.
Yeah, because what I noticed with you just go and tell me, like, show me the body, and this part affects this part, and it's this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't understand that. But I'm glad that I'm in your hands, that you know these things.
Right.
So, and I hear also these things, like they say, go to the chiropractor, they do dry needling, and I never got what is the difference between dry needling and acupuncture.
Dry needling is a term that was coined to sell to the American public. Acupuncture is dry needling. We're using a solid filiform needle to penetrate the skin, and that's what dry needling does. There's a misconception, unfortunately, that dry needling is different than acupuncture, which it isn't. Dry needling is one of the many techniques that are used by licensed acupuncturists. If they're doing dry needling in a physical therapy setting, often I hear from patients that they'll put several needles in and then hook up little wires to the needles, leave the patient for 20 minutes and then come back, take the wires off, take the needles out, and they call that dry needling, but that's actually full-on acupuncture.
So what are the wires connected to?
A little something like a TENS unit that's going to provide electrical stimulation.
Oh.
So we do that, with acupuncture. You can get a TENS unit where you put the little patch on your skin, and it kind of does the same thing, but this way it's actually hooking to the needle, so it goes right down to the point. Because the points are in varying depths under the skin. Some are quite deep, and some are very superficial.
And so you offer like all these sorts of things, like cupping. I'm wondering what that is.
Yeah, cupping is started out as what was known as fire cupping, where we get a ball of cotton, saturate it in alcohol, and then light it on fire. And then we put the fire quickly into the cup, and what it does is actually consumes the oxygen, so it creates a vacuum. And so before the vacuum fills back up with air, we hurry and place it on the body, and then it creates a suction on the body.
And what does that do?
It's a way of opening or enhancing circulation, breaking up blockages, whether it's fluid or blood or something else that is prohibiting a good circulation to that area. So it opens it up. One of my teachers called it creating a window to the body. So opening it, getting the circulation going better through that area. You saw that you see it a lot now with athletes and just regular people that like it. And it's a very good technique, but it's not for everything.
Yeah, I just went recently to get a massage, and that was one like, do you want to add cupping or fire cupping, whatever? And I'm like, I don't feel like it. It sounds dangerous. Is it dangerous?
It can be adverse depending on the person's condition. If you have someone who's weak, who's frail, who's very sick, an old person maybe, someone with lesions on their skin, we would advise not to do cupping. But if you have someone who has, fairly strong constitution and is, struggling with muscle pain, yeah, cupping is very effective for something like that.
But would you suggest to go to a licensed acupuncturist to do that?
Yes, absolutely. Seek out a licensed acupuncturist for these. I know we have massage therapy people doing it. I think part of the problem is that we've made our techniques so safe that everyone thinks, oh, well, there's nothing to it. We can do it. So we've got physical therapists doing it. We have massage therapists doing it. We have chiropractors doing it. We now have social workers doing acupuncture in the ear in drug detox places, which, again, there can be danger if there's not appropriate protocol for cleanliness. But yeah, a licensed acupuncturist is your best bet, because the other folks will have some training, and sure, anybody can put a needle in you. How effective the combination of needles are, that's going to be determined by the practitioner and their skill and knowledge.
So, a lot of people are scared of needles, and it's not pleasant, but I don't really find it hurts that much. I just don't like to be still personally. But what would you tell to people who are scared of it?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. If people are scared of needles, either we don't see them or we do, and they're quite worried about it at first. But once they receive a couple treatments, they realize that the benefits outweigh that little discomfort of putting the needle in, because that's really most of where you will feel it is upon insertion. A lot of practitioners use a Japanese style where they use a tube and they just tap it in. In many cases, you don't even feel it that way. Traditional Chinese acupuncture, a tube isn't used, and so you might feel the insertion a little more. But I have one patient, for example, I love having him come in. He hates needles, but he said the benefit is totally worth the little bit of discomfort of each needle, and then he gets to lay on the table and take a nap for a half hour. And he's an athlete. He's really pretty amazing, but he's one example of someone who doesn't like needles but recognizes the benefit.
And your regular patient comes once a month, or?
It depends on what they're coming for. I usually treat patients one time a week. I do work in central Utah. I go down there at this point one time per month, so I see them one time per month, and I'll do either acupuncture or regenerative injection therapy on them. And, they find it beneficial, so they come back every month for treatment.
Yeah, but going back to needles,
okay,
my pet topic, what about acupressure? Isn't that just kind of similar to acupuncture? You just apply the pressure to these points?
Sure. A lot of things like that are based on the acupuncture system. But if it's going to be effective, it has to be a little bit uncomfortable so that it's actually stimulating the point, so the body recognizes it's not just somebody touching your leg or touching you on the shoulder or whatever. For example, nausea. An easy point for nausea is above the wrist between the two tendons. Well, you can just touch that and it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. But if you stick your fingernail in there in between and stimulate that, that will alleviate the nausea. I had a dog that threw up every time we got in the car and drove south, and finally I started putting her on my lap, and I would find that point on her, and I would switch back and forth between her two paws and work the point all the way down. After, several trips of doing that, she didn't get sick in the car anymore.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually taking my dog to acupuncture, but we're kind of doing now some sort of acupressure to build a couple of needles, because he is an Irish setter, so he is very nervous. But you mentioned these regenerative injections.
Yes.
So what are they? What do they replace in Western medicine?
They're a good replacement for steroid injections. Basically, we're using my formulations include B vitamins, a mild dextrose solution, sterile water or saline, and a mild analgesic that only lasts about 10 or 15 minutes. The dextrose is a mild irritant, and it makes your body feel like it may have been injured in that area. So when the body feels like it's been injured, it's going to send in growth factors and stem cells and all kinds of, healing chemicals that it normally does to create repair in that area. So without the actual injury, we're encouraging the body to send its own medicine to itself, and that specifically to that area, so that the body can benefit and heal.
And it's usually injured joints?
It can be joints, it can be muscle. For example, somebody who's in an auto accident and has whiplash, they've got a lot of probably soft tissue tears, micro tears in their muscles, in their neck and their upper back. And so we can use these with a technique that we call perineural, which means injecting the solution near a nerve, not in a nerve, but near a nerve, to help calm the nerve, and get really good results with it. And sometimes insurance companies for auto injuries will pay for it. Regular insurance doesn't pay for the regenerative injection, but auto insurance from an accident often does.
But they pay for acupuncture now, right? The insurance.
Several do, several don't. You have to be careful. There's a few insurance companies that advertise they cover acupuncture, and then they really, either their rules are so strict that they can't be met, or they just, advertise it and don't actually deliver.
So now, can you treat obesity with acupuncture?
The what?
Obesity, weight loss.
Some do that. I choose not to, because that really is not just an acupuncture thing. It's really a lifestyle modification. Exercise, what kind of food you eat, how you eat it. You might have allergies to foods that you don't know about, and it's causing your body to, store things. So there are probably acupuncturists that are doing that. I did in the beginning, but decided that if people weren't going to work with me in a whole lifestyle change, that, they could go to somebody else.
So what do needles do? Do they suppress your appetite, or?
There are needles that will help. I don't know that I would say suppress, but maybe balance your appetite. Acupuncture is really about balance and harmony. We're creating balance and harmony between communication of the organs and how they work with each other. So it's like getting a tune-up.
Just kind of, I kind of say it like electric circuits in a body that just get tuned up.
Right.
So I find it interesting. It works for me, but I absolutely agree. One has to know, where to go. When I do something wrong, I know you're gonna point it out to me when I come visit you, and I appreciate that. And a lot of people don't believe in it. They just think it's a placebo effect. So what would you tell to these people?
Well, there is definitely, as I said earlier, placebo is a very powerful thing. If you believe something strong enough, it will probably work for you. If you disbelieve, you could perhaps make it not work. But I don't think you have to believe in acupuncture for it to work. I've had numerous patients come to me through the years that say, one of them specifically said, I've tried everything else. I haven't tried this yet, so I want to say that I've tried it so I can say I've tried everything. But it worked for him. So it kind of blew that, but he was happy that it worked for him, and he was kind of shocked and said, I really didn't think this would work, and I'm glad it did. Thank you. So that, there are good stories, and there are some that they're so sure that it's not going to work that it doesn't. And maybe it does, but it's a subtle change in the body. You're not going to, get up and feel 100% better after one treatment. So it's a matter of being tuned into your body and noticing changes, and the changes are usually quite subtle.
But I did notice when I come to you, and I'm usually always stressed out all over the place, and then you just put a needle somewhere here, and I get calm, and I just leave, and I'm completely different, in a different state of mind. So what is the point here that you put it in?
I call those my stress points, and there's about 4 of them that I use in the head. And it's a nice combination. It does calm the brain, calm the heart, calm the spirit. And it's just a matter of getting someone like you to hold still for a few minutes afterwards.
Yeah. Well, if you move, it hurts. So.
That's true.
Yeah, so you would recommend that to people who struggle with anxiety, because I would.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's good for anxiety, for depression, for, most things that are going on in our world. It can benefit. Certainly there are things that are, it can assist, but it's not going to be a, one procedure only that works. So herbs, Chinese herbal medicine, they are way ahead of us in their knowledge of herbs, and that's another thing that can be utilized as an adjunct to acupuncture or cupping or gua sha or any of the other things that we do. And, depending on what's going on with the person, their personality, what's going on in their life with them, sometimes I like to recommend herbs to go along with them.
Yeah, I noticed when you get into your office, there are all these bottles. But then when I read ingredients, there are things in it like a silkworm. And
yes. Yeah, earthworm. Yeah, it's true. We do use weird things. But, the Chinese have studied it for thousands of years, and they've found what works and what doesn't work. And they've found that putting the herbs in specific combinations can be very effective. So they'll choose a couple herbs that they call the commander or the general, and then they do a couple more herbs that support the commander or the general. And then there may be side effects from some of the herbs, so they'll put an herb or 2 in there that will counter the side effect of the previous herbs. So they're pretty complex in the way that they formulate their herbal medicines.
And so when I'm my dog gets them also from his vet, and then I, of course, look it up, Google it, and then it said to expel cold. And what does that even mean, to expel cold out of your body?
So we look at the body, say your body, as an internal environment, very much like the external environment, where we have cold, we have damp, we have dryness, we have wind, we have heat, we even have hot. Some of our summers get super hot, and there can be combinations of those. There could be a wind heat syndrome or a damp heat syndrome, and a lot of those kind of describe things like arthritis that we experience or digestive disorders. And so we are looking at you and your internal environment and what's going on there, and we can understand it by understanding the external environment. And that, I know this is would need a lot more time to make this make a lot of sense, but you're thin, you get cold easily.
I do.
And so somebody like you, we would recommend that you incorporate things like ginger into your diet, maybe cinnamon tea, spicy foods. In fact, in China, depending on where you are in China, if you're in the northern part of China where it's colder, their food will be more spicy, like Szechuan.
Mm-hmm.
That is a spicy warm food, and it was probably comes from the northern Chinese areas, where the southern are warmer, and so their food is more bland or more cooling.
Mm.
And they've recognized that all plants and foods and spices have an energetic to them that is either hot or cold or warm or cool or even neutral. And so they use those to treat someone like yourself. We would give you herbs that would help to warm your body, help to warm your interior.
I'm from Bosnia, and we never eat ice cream in the middle of the winter. And for me, it was so shocking to come to the United States and see people eating frozen yogurt and ice cream in the middle of the winter. There they are, like inside eating that cold thing, and it's snowing outside.
Right.
I still, after over 20 years of being here, I just can't imagine doing that.
And sometimes those people end up with digestive issues or other things that are adversely affected because of consuming cold during the winter months. Our vegetables that we get in the summer in the gardens tend to be more cool in nature, either neutral or cool. Like watermelon is cool. It's a great, it's popular, and it's popular for a reason, because it's hot outside, so we eat these foods that are naturally more cooling to help our body to adjust to the heat.
The functional medicine is all about that, how you use foods as a medicine and what you should avoid. And what I recently realized is something can be healthy, but a person can be sensitive to it.
Right.
And then, for example, broccoli. I'm sensitive to broccoli. I should not be eating broccoli.
Interesting.
And I've been putting in my shakes, thinking, I'm just going to get some green stuff together with fruit. But I was achieving completely opposite result. So it is quite interesting, like, know yourself.
Right.
And then look what foods are healthy that can help you improve your well-being.
Right.
And then another question is, right now we're all so busy, and we just, it's just, that is the time. We're all running, and we're feeling a little bit of pain, and then you just grab a painkiller, and God forbid there is a back surgery, they give you the opioids for a while, and then one gets addicted to that.
Right.
So what would be the alternative?
Again, acupuncture or regenerative injection therapies to address directly the problems. Something that has not received a lot of attention that I personally have experienced over the last few years and am still coping with is an intolerance to nightshades. And nightshades are plants that have a little bit of toxins, or a lot of toxins depending upon the particular plant, that we consume in the human diet, in the American diet especially. Nightshades are things such as potatoes, tomatoes, all peppers, eggplant. And I found myself having trouble several years ago because that is what I consumed all summer for lunch and dinner.
Tomatoes.
Yeah, tomatoes for lunch, fresh off the vine. Potatoes maybe at night, but for sure something like peppers, maybe stuffed with cheese, and some eggplant, Japanese eggplant, all on the grill. And that's all I ate all summer for, well, I've been doing that for over 20 years. And then I started having problems and could not put two and two together until I was away from my home in Salt Lake and somewhere else for a week or so, and the symptoms went away. And when I returned to Salt Lake and my usual routine, they came back. So then I started playing with it a little bit, and I thought it was kind of a fad diet at first, but I realize that now I am nightshade intolerant, and I can count on paying the price if I eat nightshades.
But nightshades do promote inflammation, so they're not really recommended for people that have arthritis? Or
yeah, I have a colleague that when I first discovered that, yes, okay, I'm nightshade intolerant, I contacted her and said, hey, I want to talk to you about this. And she said if I have patients come in with joint pain or inflammation, whatever, she said the first thing I do is take them off nightshades. And I thought about it, and I thought, that's really smart. So I've started to do the same thing. And, early enough on that the jury's still out, I'm going to watch and see how it works over time. But, yes, that can, if you have an inflammation somewhere or a propensity towards inflammation, getting rid of foods like, for you, broccoli, for others, maybe nightshades or glutens. There are things that we're eating that our bodies just don't tolerate well.
So, and you are a dog lover. You have
Yes.
2 sweet dogs,
Yes.
and they're so cute. Do you do acupuncture on them? They're getting up there in years, right?
They are. They're 11 and a half now, and they don't like acupuncture much, but I can sit down, and if I start slow, I can definitely do some acupressure on them, and they do get that. And so I'll work on knots in their muscles, or, one of them is showing quite a bit of arthritis in one of her knees because she was a backyard breeder dog, and she didn't have a good joint from the time she was little. We'd go for walks, and her knee would go out and lock out, and I would have to stop and massage the area a little bit, and then, eventually work the joint back in place so we could finish the walk. And so she's got some arthritis in that joint, and so I'm careful about the types of foods they get. They don't get human food. Occasionally they get meat, but mostly I've got them on a grain-free diet, and they're doing quite well. I believe it's probably normal for a lot of people to be skeptical, and again, if you're trying various things for your body that aren't working, consider looking into acupuncture and find a licensed acupuncturist in the state of Utah, and give them a try. If the one thing I will say is we're not all created the same, and some of us specialize in one thing or another, and others are, general practitioners. So do your homework. Look around, search the internet, make some calls, send some emails, and do your own homework. See what you can learn about acupuncture before you go in to an acupuncturist. I have people come to me and say, so tell me how it works, and I want to say, Google it.
That was my favorite thing when I was in my Ph.D. program. Like, Google it.
Yeah. So, it's hard to give acupuncture a reasonable explanation without enough time to do it, because it is a very complex medical system, and it's effective, and it's been around, some say 2,000-3,000 years, but we can actually date it back to the Iceman that they found that had the arrowhead in the back of his back, and he's 5,000 years old. So acupuncture is 5,000 years old, and just to explain why he's important, they found tattoos on his body and brought in specialists from all kinds of places to try to figure out what were these tattoos. Were they ceremonial or what? And finally there was a Japanese researcher there that knew about acupuncture, and he said, I believe those are acupuncture points. So they brought an acupuncturist in and said, if you were doing acupuncture and using these points, what might you be treating? And the acupuncturist looked at them and said, it looks like there may have been some digestive issues and perhaps some joint pain or arthritis. And when they did the MRI on the Iceman, I think it's Utsi, they found that yes, he had arthritis and he had, can't think of it. Anyway, he had
ulcers.
No. He had a parasite, I'm sorry.
Oh, parasites.
He had a parasite in his digestive system that was causing him digestive pain. So arthritis and parasites. Somebody had tattooed those areas on his body so that he would know where to either warm them or, stimulate them to assist his problems.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Kris, we learned a lot today.
Thank you.
Especially, we are at the end of January. I'm so grateful. It's the gloomiest month of the year, especially for us who do not ski. And I just learned recently that third Monday in January is the most depressing day of the year, and there is a scientific evidence and calculations to prove that. So, but it is really, nice to talk to you at the beginning of the new month, how to take care of ourselves so we are healthier.
Yes.
And can take advantage of upcoming spring. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And for people who are watching, how can they reach you to schedule an appointment?
They can reach me by phone, and they can also reach me by email, which isn't quite as effective as a phone, because I get too much email and sometimes it goes away without me. It goes into the spam file. So my phone number is 801-263-9380.
And your website, I just realized we never mentioned the name of your business.
The business is Alpine Wellness Center. And so the website is alpinewellnesscenter.com. And you can find a little bit more about most of the things that we do, or me. And would encourage you to check us out.
Yeah. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for watching.